As a traveller, I and 40 other thousand travellers has experienced inequalities in Ireland. So what does Ireland need to do to address the inequalities experienced by my community? How do we address the power imbalance?
Well, you are speaking a truth, and a truth that's experienced in many countries by many other communities who are marginalized or outside the system, or at least feel that they are outside the system, and do not feel empowered very often to have the system do what it should do. I mean, first and foremost, I don't have all the answers for sure, right? Mm. And I don't want to engage in tokenism where I'm telling you this is what you should do or anyone should do. But I think the first thing we must all recognize as we say things like we're all in this together and we should leave no one behind, and all of these lovely terms, right? But if you're living in a difficult situation, if you're living in a situation, an overcrowded situation where you don't have access to the services you need, and you're pushed out of your community, that doesn't mean, you are being left behind. And we're not all in this together. There are different rules for different groups. And there has to be a broader recognition when we say things like that they're not just tokens. So we can all feel good about ourselves and go back to our middle class lives and feel very good that we think everything should be equal. Equality and equity don't come from saying it. Yeah. They come from doing things and actually making a commitment to change. I was on a podcast with Brezzy a number of months ago. We were talking about mental health, and we were saying, look, if you change nothing, nothing changes. The reality in Ireland is the traveller community, and it's community I know well, and I have the deepest of respect for, and I grew up with many young friends as a young boy. We are all in this together. But there has to be dialogue. There has to be a fundamental recognition in all societies and in Irish society that there need to be voices for everybody, real voices, not just token voices, but real dialogue around how we make the situation better for everyone. How do we address the housing crisis? Then how do we address the housing crisis amongst the traveller community? How do we address the issue of health and health determinants, social determinants of health in the traveller community? And what is different? And why is that the case? And sometimes outsiders all have the answers. They come with the questions, the answers, and tell you what's wrong. I think we need a different dialogue. I think we need communities, all communities who feel marginalized, to actually be able to have a voice to say, this is what's wrong, this is what's happening, and more importantly, this is how it could be fixed. And I think that's where sometimes the dialogue stops. The dialogue stops at co-creating the solution and actually listening to what communities know. My experience around the world, to be honest with you, I do epidemics and crises and other things, but for me, the epidemics begin and end in communities, and the answers begin and end in communities. And listening to communities and having that dialogue and having what you're doing right now, to me, is fantastic. That leadership within your community and representing that community at all levels and demanding that dialogue and demanding that voice, and not only having the voice heard, but having action taken in response to that dialogue. And that's where it sometimes stops. You have these, sorry, I'm being very direct, but we end up in a lot of discussions, and everyone is very happy to have the discussions, and we can put out the press release and have the nice photos, and everyone looks like they're good and kind and tolerant and all of that. But none of that matters unless there's real change, unless people truly change what they do. And to change what you do means you must change how you think. And we, as a society, all of us, have biases that we're not even conscious of. And we carry these biases around with us our whole lives. And we look at a certain community and we immediately make judgments. We project our beliefs about a community onto that community. And then we expect that community to behave or act in a certain way. And then we're not surprised if they do. And it turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy, which further isolates and marginalizes a group. And the only way we get around that is we bring people together in a dialogue and to talk and to fully understand each other. And from my perspective, That's what I like. That's why I come and want to be engaged in webinars like this, because we can do all the high level press conferences we like, and we do a global press conference twice a week, and we can talk to the world. But the real conversation that needs to happen in the world, if we're going to change it, is at community level. That's where the conversations need to happen if we're to fundamentally change the way our society operates and the way we include or exclude groups. And none of that is going to change unless we move beyond the tokenism of saying there's a problem, and we move towards changing the reality together.